Hey guys, in this week's episode, we're going to talk about Sofia Coppola's newest film, On the Rocks. But before that, we're going to talk about Scream 4 and the entire Scream Saga, as well as Mandalorian Season 2, Return of Mandalorian.
Is that the real subtitle?
Yep. That's the name of the episode. Join us.
Welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinks. My name is Justin. With me, as always, is a man who might be running around doing other podcasts behind our back. We're not sure, but all signs point to the fact that he is. Mike, what's up? What are you doing?
Oh, a little of this, little of that. I'll be vague just to keep things mysterious, but
Yeah, now I'm really suspicious of you.
Yeah, you could always ask.
That would be a way shorter episode and a way shorter intro and a way shorter movie if people just did that.
Indeed. If this is your first time listening, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March, which is where we talk about film and TV news or movies and TV that we have been watching over the last week since last time we recorded. And then we'll move into our feature review. This week, we're discussing the newest Sofia Coppola film, On the Rocks.
That's right. And also here on the Casual Cinecast, every other week, or just about every other week, we put out a Casually Criterion episode. In these episodes, listeners choose a film from the Criterion collection for us to review by voting in a poll that we put out on our Twitter account. So look forward to our next Criterion poll, and also check out our latest Criterion episode on The Uninvited, and also look back in our catalog for plenty of other Criterion collection content. And speaking of Twitter polls, Mike, we have a current poll up to choose the film that we're going to review next week. So what's going on with that poll?
Well, at the moment, the poll is still going. But currently, Diabolique is winning, with Cat People in second and Island of Lost Souls in third place, which sucks because that was my pick and I want to see it.
Island of Lost Souls?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. I thought I picked that one. I guess I didn't.
No, I think I picked that one because I'm the one that was on the Island of Dr. Moreau kick.
Oh, okay. I think maybe you
think you picked...
What's that?
I think you picked Diabolique or Cat People.
Yeah, I think I picked Diabolique because I can't see myself picking Cat People, having never seen it.
Yeah.
I think you just said Island of Lost Souls, and I got really excited because we did our Island of Dr. Moreau / Color
Out of Space.
I can never remember that. I keep wanting to say The Color Purple, but that's a totally different movie.
Yeah, that's way different.
But yeah, I got really excited about that. So maybe I'm just thinking that I did it, but... Good choice. I hope it wins too.
The poll is still open, so there's still time for all these Island of Lost Souls fans to make it happen.
Yeah, and it's tight enough that it can be swayed, Like everything's pretty close together.
Yeah. I mean, it'll probably be done by the time you're listening to this episode, so there's not really any point in talking about it anymore.
Oh. Whoops.
Yeah. Womp womp.
Yeah. Well, if you want to stay up to date and in tune with the polls, before you hear about them too late on the episode, you can follow us on Twitter at Casual Cinecast. That's where we post the polls. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Casual Cinecast as well. If you want to send us any thoughts or topics or questions about the movies we're reviewing, you can send messages to any of those social media accounts or an email to casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, if you haven't done so already and you enjoy the show, help other people find it by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever platform you listen to podcasts on.
And I think with that, we should just go ahead and get on into News on the March so we can talk about everything that's been going on in this hellscape of a world this last week. What do you think?
No, as depressing as you made that sound, I'm excited to go do that.
We'll talk about the happy parts.
Yeah, good idea.
News on the March!
Okay, so Justin, I have not been watching a whole lot this week. I've been sort of in a funk rewatching stuff I've already seen.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing of which I really want to talk about here because I don't think it's that interesting. But I know you have been watching something that was appropriate during the month we just got out of, October, and Halloween and all that stuff. So why don't you talk about what you've been up to?
Yeah, so I guess this is a thing I've been up to, stretching out, slowly but surely over the last year.
Okay, so it wasn't a Halloween thing. It was just sort of a
I mean,
thing.
Yes and no. So it started on last Halloween, where my at the time girlfriend, now wife, we on Halloween decided to watch a scary movie, and she had never seen the first Scream film.
Oh,
So we watched the first Scream film on Halloween, and a couple of random times we did Scream 2 and Scream 3 throughout this last year, and then we didn't really plan it this way, but we ended up saying, you know what, it's Halloween. We watched the first Scream. Let's watch the fourth one and like round off what is currently available of the saga. I think they're making a Scream 5, but that's kind of irrelevant right now.
Sure.
So we watched Scream 4 and finished off the saga. And I just wanted to bring it up just because, it is like Halloween-ish time still. I think people might still be in the spooky movie mood. And I think that all of the Scream films are pretty enjoyable. They vary in quality here and there, but I think for a fun, easy, not gonna like creep you out too much scary movie, I think the Scream movies are really fun overall. I even liked 4 a lot more than I thought I would. Especially, I remember, well, from watching it this time, but even just like from the first time I watched it, I was never a big Scream 3 fan. So it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I actually have not seen any of these films since Scream 3 came out. And like I remember renting it and watching it on VHS.
That was a long time ago then.
Yeah. So that's the last time I saw a Scream film. I remember not necessarily liking the third one very much. The thing I remember that rubbed me the wrong way the most was the Jay and Silent Bob cameo.
Right.
But not even like, if I remember correctly, it's not even like they're in the background. It's like they have like dialogue and like.
Yeah. They have dialogue. They have their own like close-ups.
Yeah. It's like, it just grinds the movie to a halt and winks in all the wrong ways.
It's pretty short, to be fair, but yeah.
Sure. But that doesn't excuse it. I think the one I've seen the most actually is 2. Is that the one where like some dude gets murdered in a van?
They kind of blend together.
Yeah.
I think you're right, though.
Yeah, I feel like in the second one, like, maybe it's not David Arquette, but I don't remember, because he may still be alive. I don't remember, but like...
He's still around for Scream 4, I'll say that much.
Okay, I feel like someone was talking to David Arquette in the second Scream, like a guy with a camera or something like that, like someone from the news crew, and then they get killed in a van in broad daylight or something. I don't know. It's been a minute since I've seen these films. But I remember they've always been sort of like self-referential, sort of meta. Like even the first one is kind of like dissecting the slasher genre up until like 96 or whatever, until when that movie was made. And then I think all of them since then, if I understand, have been sort of doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, they get even more meta than the first one. The first one's like meta in the sense that it's talking a lot about scary movies and how characters act in scary movies and the rules of them. And what's funny about them, is that from Scream 2 and on, in the world of the Scream movies, there's a movie series called Stab that is essentially the Scream movies. But they're made based off of the events of the first Scream. Mm-hmm. And they continue making this movie series all throughout them. So I think in Scream 4, I think they are on Stab 7 exists.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they've already surpassed Scream 3.
Yeah.
And they're adapting the Scream 6 that they'll inevitably make.
Yeah. So they get pretty fun as those Stab movies get more and more ridiculous, and like the kind of lore around Sydney, the main character. The lore around her gets more and more ridiculous, and the fan base gets more and more ridiculous, But I think that's where a lot of the fun comes from, even if by the time they do Scream 3, they're in Hollywood making a Stab movie and you wind up with Jay and Silent Bob in a scene, where it goes a little too far.
Let me ask you, because I've never seen Scream 4. Is Scream 4 sort of like the Halloween 2018, where it's like they're playing off like everyone's obsession with true crime and like making celebrities out of victims and celebrities out of killers and stuff like that? Or is it not that thoughtful?
Yes. I mean, it's not that thoughtful. Like, it's not that important, but the base plot line is that Sydney, Nev Campbell, comes back to her hometown where all the events of the first Scream happened because she's written a book about her experience and how it's affected her.
Yeah.
And she's there to promote a book, and she has like a publicist with her who is played by Alison Brie, who is enjoyable as always.
Oh, Alison Brie.
Yeah, I didn't expect to see her in it, you know. So that's about as like much commentary on the true crime thing as there is she's just got a popular book and is popular from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
But what's her name? Courtney Cox, you know, throughout the whole series, she's always been writing the books about the events of the Scream movies afterwards. And
capitalizing on the whole thing.
Yeah. But even in this movie, though, she's trying to write fiction and move on from doing that sort of thing.
Cool. Well, I guess you'll have to see how it all wraps up in Scream 5.
Yeah, I recommend them all. You know, super fun, super easy. Not like they're bloody, they're violent, but not too dark, right?
Sure.
Not like a depressing, dark thing like The Conjuring or some sort of stuff like that.
Sure. With at least the first Scream, it's very self-aware.
Yeah.
Cool.
Totally.
All right. Anything else about the Scream films you want to go over?
Nope, that's it.
Awesome. Well, I'll probably check those out. I haven't seen the first Scream since since it came out, right? And I remember that movie. I don't know how old I was whenever it came out. I assume 9, if it came out in like 96, if I'm remembering that correctly.
I think so, but keep talking and I'll find out.
Okay. Well, okay, assuming it came out in 96, I probably saw it on VHS in like 97, right? And that movie scared me so bad. It really did. It messed with me for like a long time. And I haven't bothered going back since then, but I'm not really big on the slasher genre. I really do like Halloween and Halloween 2018. And I even liked some of the other Halloween sequels and remakes in between. But slasher stuff has never really been my thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that first Scream did a number on me when it came out.
Yeah, I think there's, something kind of satisfying about it. I think you'll like them if you revisit them. I think you'll at least like Scream 1 and then probably Scream 2, and then you might fall off a little bit from there. But
hey, Scream 3 cannot be worse than I remember it being.
No, I don't think so. And I'm sure you've seen worse sagas.
Yeah. And I was right. Scream did come out in 1996.
You were, yes. I meant to tell you that, and then I got distracted.
Yeah. Good.
You just weren't wrong, so I didn't have to jump in and correct you.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Okay, cool. So that is the Scream franchise, to be continued.
And moving on from there, something we have both seen.
Yeah, let's take a stab at reviewing The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1.
Yeah, let's do it. We're not spoiling this, though, right?
I mean, I think we can spoil who's in it. You know what? How do you spoil this? I don't know. We'll be vague, but we're going to talk about the whole episode and how we feel about it.
Yeah, we'll be vague, so you can probably still listen. But I'm sure if you're really into Mandalorian and you don't want anything spoiled, you're not going to listen anyway. So.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil you for the first time here.
Yeah. Cool. So go ahead with your thoughts on the first episode, Mike.
Well, I think this is the best episode of The Mandalorian.
I agree.
I think it's so fun. The special effects are doubled. The episode is longer. The dialogue is more prevalent. The first one was so slight. All the episodes were around 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes at the most. There wasn't a whole lot of dialogue, very much like Man with No Name, And this is very much continuing that. We're starting in Chapter 9. It lets you know that we're continuing the same story. This episode, I feel like if you didn't know this was the first episode of Season 2, you could watch it right after the finale of Season 1 and not even feel a difference.
Yeah.
I'll say the special effects look a little wonky here. At the beginning, maybe some of the speeder bike stuff. I can tell the screens they're using, they're getting a little bit more ambitious with them. And there's probably going to be some growing pains there. But it still looks better than most green screen stuff, looks better than most television. It's the special effects in this premiere are on par with anything in Game of Thrones and all the millions of dollars that HBO threw at that. And let me just say that the character that they introduced in the beginning of the season, played by Timothy Olyphant, is a wonderful addition to Star Wars. And yeah, I think he's just so charming and cool, and he's got cool hair, and I just want to see him do stuff in Star Wars more. So I'm really hoping we get more of this character. And I really appreciate how they're tying in extended canon, right? Like we're tying in prequels, we're tying in original trilogy, we're tying in cartoons, we're tying in books that most people don't read or think about, right? So The Mandalorian is doing for live action Star Wars some really wonderful stuff, especially if you're a nerd like me who has been kind of following the extended canon since Disney bought it. And it feels like a payoff, like a validation of all this time and effort that I've put towards nonsense facts and trivia, you know?
Yeah, it's no longer just stuff you know. It's stuff that
you could know.
Yeah, that you can be in on and be like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, there was a certain joy that I got whenever Timothy Oliphant's like, my name is Cobb Vanth. I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, that sounded...
I've been waiting years to hear that name out loud, you know?
Really? Yeah. So that name sounded familiar when he said it. And so did the name of the town, Moss something or other.
Pelgo? Moss Pelgo? Yeah.
Something like that. That sounded familiar. And you told me that he was a character that existed in like the book that I'm currently reading, which is the second of the Aftermath series, which is Star Wars canon books. And then it clicked. I was like, I think like a week ago, read a little short story that's in that book about him.
Yeah. So, that's the kind of stuff that I want in live action Star Wars. I can take Easter eggs to the original movies all day and night because they love to throw those in there. Those get a little old sometimes, but stuff like this, like bringing in extended canon, bringing in characters that, I don't know, that no one ever thought would be on live action. That's just really cool to me. And on top of that, it's a really fun episode of TV. Like it, I don't know, it moves. It's got good pacing. The special effects are awesome. Mm-hmm. I don't know. What did you think of it? I've kind of raved about it a little bit, but what do you think about the season 2 premiere and how do you compare to season 1 and all that?
Yeah, I think compared to season 1, to get anything potentially negative sounding, but it is not actually a negative opinion out of the way, is that the episode did feel a little long to me, but I think it's because I'm used to those like 30-ish minute run times, and this one's almost an hour. So like in comparison, this one feels longer, and technically it is.
And
so maybe
longer.
That's that's not really a complaint. Just something where you think, oh, this has to be wrapping up soon, and then you realize you've got 25 minutes left.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't trade any of those 25 minutes though.
No. They're all good. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a fun adventure. It's a fun, sort of dragon slaying adventure, if you will. And I enjoy that. But one of the most fun things about it to me is that it really, for a season premiere, it was fun to like have a movie that kind of feels very reminiscent of the original trilogy, and particularly the first film, because, we are on Tatooine and we visit a town very similar to like Mos Eisley. We do go to Mos Eisley first when we go to the spaceport. Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, we do see Mos Eisley, and then we see creatures and other characters and literal things from like the first movie and the trilogy. So it really felt a little bit more than anything in the first season that I can remember, other than Baby Yoda. It felt a little bit more like fully Star Wars universe than some of the first season, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think what this show is doing is it's blending the aesthetics of at least the prequel and original trilogy. It hasn't really gotten to do that with the sequels yet because they happen like decades after this, right? Like 20 years after the events of season 2 of Mandalorian, I think.
Yeah.
But, like here you'll have like goofy droid humor and like droids doing slapstick nonsense, like very much something out of like Attack of the Clones, right? And then you'll also have, a pod racer callback, and then you'll also have Sand People callback. It's blending in the two trilogies, I think, in a really cool way that makes it feel organic, and more than the movies themselves do, I think. Like, because if you watch the prequel trilogy and then you watch the original trilogy back to back, you're like, wow, these look vastly different. And that's just the nature of filmmaking and, technology and sets and all that stuff. But I find The Mandalorian has a really cool way of blending the old and the new in a way that feels fluid. And also gives you callbacks to some Star Wars that, like, in my opinion, I don't think I enjoy Attack of the Clones that much. But here we are doing lots of Jango Fett and Boba Fett type of callbacks and all this stuff that, like, it has, like, the Endgame effect that the MCU had, right? Where, like, you watch Endgame and it takes into account some of the lesser MCU movies that weren't very good. And then you're like, this makes me feel better about some of the stuff I watched previously.
Yeah, it takes away that sort of sometimes like time-wasted feeling that you get from lesser entries.
Yeah, like in the first season of Mandalorian, we go back to Tatooine and we hang out with this lame bounty hunter guy, and probably the worst episode of The Mandalorian.
I agree. And that's pretty early on in season 1, and I remember thinking, oh, maybe they're not going to stick this the whole way through.
It's like episode 5. It's like midway point through season 1.
Okay.
But the thing is, this episode brings callbacks to that episode. So it makes the whole episode maybe not better, but less of a waste of time.
Yeah, I also realized watching this one, and I don't think I caught it on the first season for some reason, but Amy Sedaris is the woman in it who's Princess Carolyn from BoJack Horseman, which is a show we're both big fans of. And I guess maybe I've seen more BoJack Horseman now, and I've seen
Recognize
it all.
the voice?
Yeah, and so the voice is just, I can't separate it now.
Yeah, I think her performance is better this season than it was last season too. Anyway, that's my main thoughts. I'm excited to kind of see where the series goes. I think this season's going to be a lot more ambitious than the first season. Jon Favreau said that now that they've got their ducks in a row and the screens all lined up and everything, a lot more of the money can be spent on the screen.
Right.
And I think that shows, at least based on Chapter 9. So, I don't know, we've got 7 more chapters this season. So...
Yeah. Do you know anything about runtimes and whether or not they're all going to be closer to this length, or is this kind of a special, season premiere longer episode?
So he said that this season the episodes would be a lot more varying in length.
Oh, okay.
He said last season they were more uniform, even though they did vary, 10 minutes give or take, right? But they were all between 28 minutes and 40 minutes.
Okay.
This one hits the ground at like 52 minutes. So that's like a Game of Thrones episode or something. So I doubt they'll all be this long. I think this one had a lot of dialogue, which kind of padded out the runtime, because Timothy Olyphant talks a lot.
Yeah.
And I think he probably talks more than anyone in season 1. So I think if they keep going with dialogue and they keep trying to add these characters in to explain them, you'll probably get some longer runtimes. But if it's just an adventure with Mando and the baby, I imagine it'll be closer to 30 minutes,
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And also, I agree with you what you said earlier, that Timothy Olyphant's great. And he's a good addition to anything when he pops up.
But he especially works here. Like, I've seen Timothy Olyphant in a lot of stuff, and I've always liked him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man. It feels like you can get on Twitter, and I don't think we're alone in this. I think the world is just pretty smitten with him after this episode.
I get it. I understand.
Yeah, I understand that urge to be smitten with him. But yeah, that's my thoughts on The Mandalorian Season 2. I'm excited to continue with this season, and I'm sad that it's 1 episode a week, but also happy.
Right, yeah. It's fun to have something to look forward to. But I think we've been over the week-to-week release plenty over the last several months.
I will say, though, I don't like this whole releasing it at midnight on Friday thing, because it's Pacific time, so it's like 2 a.m., my time, or 3 a.m. for like East Coasters.
Yeah.
I think they should just try to do this and make it like an event television thing. Like drop it at like 8 p.m. or whatever on Thursday night and make it like a thing that people can tune in the night before for. So they don't have to wake up early on Friday to watch it or watch it after work. It feels like it's counterintuitive to drop it at this weird time where everyone just kind of randomly sees it throughout the day.
Yeah.
And it feels smarter to make it more like event television, like the new Game of Thrones for Disney, Yeah,
because you can't really, for most people, plan to be like, oh, Mandalorian drops at midnight, I'm gonna, or later, for a lot of people.
Right,
like,
yeah, like I happen to be able to
that.
stay up and watch the premiere because I happen to be off work the next day, but normally I work on Fridays. So I'll have to just not do that because I don't want to stay up until 2 a.m.
And then you have to like contend all day and wait until the next evening to get home and watch it if you're a normal working person, which, you know, admittedly isn't everybody, but
Sure.
still, like, it would be nice if I could say, oh, I'm going to watch Mandalorian tonight, like I would, you know, a Game of Thrones or a Barry or, you know, Lost or something when it was on cable TV.
Yeah, like it would be fun to know that we were all tuning in at the same time to the same thing.
Yeah.
And then that way, like, you know, at like 9 p.m., everyone could text each other and be like, did you see it, you know?
Yeah, and it just makes more sense this day and age, I think, to do that versus let it exist for the few who could watch it early, and then the rest of us have to avoid spoilers all day.
Exactly. That's my thing is like, you know, as someone who is on Reddit pretty frequently, you know, I don't do much other social media, but I am on Reddit. I don't necessarily want to avoid spoilers all day for something that like I would have gladly watched hours earlier.
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. Think about it, Disney. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I know you're listening.
Yeah. Okay. Now I think we really are done with The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. And now I guess it's time for us to move into our review of the new Sofia Coppola film, On the Rocks.
Yep. No arguments from me.
Hi, Dad.
Hey, kiddo. Oh my gosh, do you look beautiful. Cliff, how's your mom's hip?
Good, thanks.
Good. He thinks you're my girlfriend.
Bryce.
Been busy?
Yeah, Dean's traveling with clients all the time, and I'm just the buzzkill waiting to schedule things. I'm so stuck.
So Dean's going away a lot, huh? On business trips?
Dad,
Raise your hand if that sounds fishy.
he's not like you. He's a good guy, a great dad.
Sure, it's nature. Males are forced to fight, to dominate, and to impregnate all females.
Maybe he's just not interested in me anymore.
Impossible. A woman's at her most beautiful between the ages of 35 and 39.
Great, so I have many months left.
All right, so as always with our newer films, we will be doing a spoiler-free section up front. We'll be talking generally about our thoughts on the film, not giving any spoilers, and then we will give you a warning and play a bumper so that you have plenty of time to pause the podcast before we move into spoilers. Then you can go watch On the Rocks and then come back and finish listening to the rest of the spoiler-full conversation.
That's right. So, On the Rocks was directed by Sofia Coppola, stars Rashida Jones, Bill Murray, and Marlon Wayans. The IMDb synopsis says a young mother reconnects with her larger-than-life Playboy father on an adventure through New York.
I love it.
Yeah. Simple synopsis.
Simple movie, too.
Yeah, it's a very simple movie. Yes. Justin, why don't you kick us off on your overall feelings to Sofia Coppola and then your ultimate feelings for On the Rocks?
Sure. So Sofia Coppola is a filmmaker that I really enjoy. I have seen most of her movies, if not all of them. Let me check real quick.
While you're checking, let me just say I have not seen The Beguiled. I think that's the main Sofia Coppola film I have yet to see.
I have not seen The Bling Ring,
I've seen The Bling Ring.
but I have seen The Beguiled.
We're opposite there, it seems.
We are. So yeah, at least in terms of her feature films, it looks like she's done a lot of short stuff and other things. But yeah, so The Beguiled is pretty much the only one that I haven't been that into.
The Bling Ring has been the one that I have been the least into.
Interesting. So we're going to have to like swap these and watch those soon. And like,
Indeed.
then we can talk about them. Maybe a News on the March or something next week or whenever.
Yeah.
But anyways, the Beguiled is the one that I wasn't super into. The rest of them I have liked to varying degrees. Probably Marie Antoinette being the one I liked the least, but Virgin Suicides, which we reviewed on the show, I really liked a lot. And then Lost in Translation and Somewhere I love. I think they're both great.
Yep. Same boat.
So that led me to, I don't know if you recall this, but way back at the beginning of 2020, we did our most anticipated films of 2020. And
Oh my God, that feels like a million years ago.
I know, it was so long ago. And many of those films are irrelevant that we listed. But if I remember correctly, one of my choices was Sofia Coppola's On the Rocks.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I kind of forgot this too, but I was looking back. We sometimes put our choices on Cinelinx's most anticipated articles, and I had On the Rocks in mine on that, and so I assume I had it on the episode too. But the reason that I was most anticipated is, I basically read nothing but the IMDb synopsis that you just read, and saw that it was Sofia Coppola with starring Rashida Jones and Bill Murray again, and so I got very, very heavy, like somewhere between Lost in Translation and Somewhere vibes from it, which, as I just stated, are like the two films of hers that I think the most highly of.
Mm-hmm.
So basically I was like, I don't need to know any more about it. I don't need to see a trailer. I'm sold. I'm excited about this movie. So I'm really happy to have a movie come out that was on my most anticipated list finally. Because everything else has been pushed back and pushed back.
This is what a normal year feels like.
Yeah. Some semblance of normalcy is great. But so I was very excited about it. I didn't watch a trailer or anything. I just jumped straight into this movie over the weekend to watch it. And I have to say, this is probably my third favorite, maybe fourth favorite Sofia Coppola movie. It's right there. Maybe not quite as good as Somewhere in Lost in Translation, but maybe in time it will be. But
wow.
I definitely like it as much as like The Virgin Suicides.
Okay.
I thought it was really good. It's really fun. It's a lot simpler than her other films to an extent. Some of them are pretty simple, I guess, but like it seemed
they're deceptively simple, I think.
Yeah, it seemed more accessibly simple, if that makes sense. Like this felt more like Sofia Coppola doing her version of a Woody Allen film. Like, like the 70s and 80s Woody Allen. And maybe even some of the modern ones, but that's kind of what it felt like to me. Maybe it's like the New York setting, but it definitely felt a lot like more on the surface funny instead of like super dry humor, like some of the other ones. But I enjoyed the humor of it. I thought Bill Murray was really charming in this one, and I think a lot of credit goes to his performance for that, because that character that he plays could easily be extremely unlikable, and at times he is a little bit unlikable, but he's so charming that he never quite gets there, and that to me that's really impressive in both like the writing and his performance, and that's kind of the thing that sticks out to me that kind of carries the movie. And I just have to say I really enjoyed it. It's a simple comedy, really a dramedy, but there's a lot of comedy in it, and I'm a big fan. I'll save any other thoughts I have for later. So, Mike, what did you think? And what are your thoughts on Sofia Coppola?
I'm very similarly thoughtful on Sofia Coppola. I don't know. I have similar thoughts to you on Sofia Coppola. Lost in Translation was the first film I saw of hers that I really loved and responded to. Somewhere I thought was really, really great. I like Virgin Suicides quite a bit. And then I've liked most of her movies to varying degrees. This film, I would say I enjoyed much more than The Bling Ring, but I don't think it holds a candle to even Virgin Suicides. I think it's maybe a little too simple. Mm-hmm. I think there's moments of sheer beauty in this film where Rashida Jones and Bill Murray can sit down at a table and really talk about heavy stuff, because he plays this father who's been sort of estranged from her. He's a playboy. He left the family many years prior, had numerous affairs, and so on. And then, there's a few scenes where she really talks to him about those things, where I think the movie shines. And I think the movie is wonderful. But then there's some moments where it almost seems like a Looney Tunes skit, and like Bill Murray's like Bugs Bunny, pulling the wool over everyone's eyes and like being almost more charming than is believable. Mm-hmm. There's like one scene specifically with like a police officer where they get pulled over and Bill Murray kind of has to be charming. And, stuff like that makes it feel a little too obvious, or maybe a little too simple. Like, I don't know, this whole plot of this movie feels like an extended sitcom episode. Like it feels like it could have been like the plot of like Mad About You, episode like season 3, episode 5 or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Any movie or sitcom with like a married couple, Everybody Loves Raymond or King of Queens or something like that.
Yes. We're in very familiar territory here. So the whole movie, I never got a sense that things were going to be too dark or too dramatic. But also, that's not really Sofia Coppola's style anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe that's kind of where I was at. But ultimately, I'll keep my thoughts brief so we can kind of get into more specifics. But I will say that I think the film is good. Bill Murray is very charming. Rashida Jones has great chemistry with Bill Murray. Mm-hmm. But there were times when I could feel the Bill Murray-ness being a little too consciously adorable.
Sure.
And it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I don't like it whenever I can see people trying to be cute.
Yeah.
I feel the same way with, like, certain Cary Grant roles. You know, some of his lesser films, whenever he doesn't have a good director. I feel that way maybe about certain segments of The Office whenever Rainn Wilson wasn't reined in playing Dwight, you know?
Right.
Like, I can just feel like I can feel the acting happening, like the wheels turning. I feel like I'm watching them work.
Yeah, and almost like they're caricaturing themselves or what they normally do at times.
Yeah, and I feel like this movie really lies on like the persona of Bill Murray.
Yeah, it does. I don't think you're wrong.
So I have varying degrees of success with that, but ultimately I like it. I think the movie's got enough heart to make it well worth your time. It's an interesting father-daughter relationship between like this misogynistic, sexist playboy and his, you know, middle-aged daughter who is got a better head on her shoulders than he does, but also has a lot of issues of her own to work through, you know, and probably because of her father. So
yeah. I think that's where the complexity of the movie does exist for me, is their relationship and their effect on each other, maybe more so him on her, but you know, the fact that she is suspicious that her husband is, you know, playing around on her, and who she's going to talk about this sort of stuff is a man who was unfaithful to her mother and unfaithful to no one, or faithful to no one, right? And unfaithful to everybody. And
right.
He's just basically like a caricatured personification of what she thinks her husband is doing.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like, she is scared that she married her father.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And they never state that in the movie.
No, they don't. And like I said, like, those are the elements where I think like the movie really shines. But something overall, I feel like the way it wraps up, the way it, I don't know. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
we can
feel
get
like
into the way it wraps up, which I think maybe we might be in a kind of agreement on.
Yeah, it feels like the writing is on the wall really early on. Like, I saw the ending coming before I even like knew exactly where the movie was going. It feels like, I don't know. It just feels so telegraphed. But the moments in between, I think, sprinkled throughout between these two characters, are actually quite nice.
Yeah, it's Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, it's a fun adventure. It's fun to see Bill Murray and Rashida Jones, you know, traveling in golf carts and topless cars and eating caviar and all this stuff,
looking
you know?
through binoculars.
Yeah, it's just fun to see them act silly. But yeah, I would not say that this is my favorite Sofia Coppola, or even higher tier.
Well, I think with most Sofia Coppola that I can think of, where the movies shine is the moments, is the vibe of traveling around with a couple of characters or several characters through this like chapter of their life that the movie's covering, and seeing those moments and taking pleasure in the small things like that versus like the plot being important, right? Like they're for me less plot driven and more aesthetic driven and character driven. So I agree with you on, you know, the plot being a little average or maybe predictable.
Yeah, I feel like this movie relies on its three act structure plot more than some of her better films, right? Like Lost in Translation and Somewhere. When those end, I'm like, ooh, I could think about this for a couple hours. You know, whereas this film, it wraps up in a very straightforward way.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can move into spoilers pretty quickly so we can kind of talk about the way that it wraps up, I think.
Yeah, let's do it. So overall, I'm sitting at a 3 out of 5, but I could see it going up to a 3.5, especially once we kind of get into these conversations we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think I'm about a 4 out of 5 right now. The one thing I want to say before we move into spoilers is something that I really appreciate about Sofia Coppola's films, and I want to bring this up before spoilers because maybe this will entice someone to watch it or watch her films who hasn't seen any of them, is that it's not a secret from most people that she is related to Francis Ford Coppola and grew up in like the movie industry with a famous father.
What?
Yeah, surprised if you didn't know that. But her movies are kind of fascinated with or enjoy showing us the life of people who are in like the upper class of society, or they tend to be in like, if not high society, but like on the more famous end of things. The exception for what I've seen being Virgin Suicides. But,
yeah, which was an adaptation of a book, but
yeah,
generally she seems to lean towards her own demographic.
Yeah, and like so, like Lost in Translation, you know, Scarlett Johansson is the girlfriend of a famous photographer, and she runs into Bill Murray, who's a famous actor, right? Marie Antoinette is very obviously about Marie Antoinette in high society. Somewhere is about a famous, I believe he's a famous actor, father, and his young daughter. I have not seen The Bling Ring, but The Beguiled is also about like women who have this plantation and are well off. There's no men around, right?
Yeah, The Bling Ring is very much about like spoiled girls breaking into celebrities' houses to be even more spoiled. So it's kind of, yeah, it fits.
Yeah. So I appreciate her sort of not necessarily shameless ability to like just show us like what she knows in her life, but it's a glimpse into that world that doesn't feel judgy. You know what I mean? Or embarrassed on her part.
Right. Well, it's not reveling in. It's not like Crazy Rich Asians, where it's almost like, look how fun it is to follow rich people. Look how much fun it is for all you poor people to watch rich people live their lives. It's not like the reality TV aspect of it, where it seems like it's reveling in this these celebrities and their lifestyles and all this money, this gross wealth. You know, it doesn't like. It seems like she just naturally puts really human dramas in with these characters that in other movies would be, you know, painted as spoiled, or there'd be, and there is some of that in her movies. Like there is a little bit of the privilege that's touched on, but it all comes from a place of earnestness and honesty, because this is what she knows.
Yeah.
She's not trying to make it seem cool or wonderful. It's just what she knows. She grew up, you know, with a famous dad who got into who God knows what, because Francis Ford Coppola was not a saint.
Yeah.
You know? And so she's very much coming at it from her own point of view. So it seems very honest and acceptable, I think, whenever she tries to show us these characters, you know? We accept them.
It's sort of the setting and the backdrop sometimes, you know, as opposed to, you know, the plot or the point of it, you know? I mean, some of it helps, right? Because they can go do all kinds of crazy things in Lost in Translation or somewhere, or in this movie, they can, you know, show up in like a old classic topless car to drive around the city and, you know, and go to fancy restaurants. Yeah. So like that stuff is there, but it's very much just the setting and kind of factual. And it's a viewpoint that I don't see very much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's fair. You know, I mean, you look at like someone like Terrence Malick, that guy's got a point of view, and it does not seem like his characters are anything like Sofia Coppola's characters, but they both have a point of view.
Yeah. But that's one of the things that stuck out to me about this movie and most of her movies. So I think it makes them worthwhile, at least even the ones I've seen that, you know, I'm not as high on. So
Sure.
So yeah, that's pretty much all that I had that I want to get in before spoilers. So if you're ready, we can move into spoilers.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot, but let's do it.
All right, let's go.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Give me one cigarette you got up there. I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
Okay, so now that we are in spoilers, let me go ahead and say my favorite scene in the movie.
Yes, please.
It is whenever Rashida Jones, I think, just straight up asks him, like, why he left or what's going on.
Like, why'd you leave my mom? Why'd you cheat on her, sort of thing?
Something like that. But, like, he comes back with the story about the woman that he left for. He was very in love, and recently she's died. And she was younger than he ever was, you know, and he's remembering her when she was alive. And he's not even apologizing for leaving the family. He's just an old man lamenting at loss. You know, like he loved and he's lost and he hasn't been perfect. And right now he's doing his best to connect the only way he knows how with a daughter, like probably the one girl in the whole world that he would not try to sleep with, right? Like, and he has to use all these charms on her and try to get her to return his affections. And it's all just like fascinating because he is such a playboy and she should hate him. And yet she doesn't. She has a certain amount of empathy for him, but she has a lot of issues and a lot of unresolved feelings towards him. And I like whenever she confronts him about it, he doesn't make excuses. He just comes back with just honest hurt. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to hate someone that, you know, even though, yeah, he left me and he left my mom for this woman. He loved this woman and she's dead now. And none of that matters anymore because, you know, here we are. I don't know. There's a certain amount of there's a certain sadness, I guess, to that scene that's what I want from Sofia Coppola's movies. I want that kind of feeling, the messiness of humans, not necessarily the gift-wrapped ending that we got in Act 3, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the plot is kind of gift-wrapped, but maybe not the characters.
Yeah, like the characters are great. Like the final scene between her and her dad, wonderful, you know?
Yeah.
All that stuff, but I think the I don't know, something about the whole marriage plot seems so sitcom-y.
Yeah.
Like the misunderstanding was so obvious from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. It just like if they hadn't telegraphed it so much, or if they would have, I don't know.
The problem with the plot like that is, can you really be satisfied following a story for an hour and a half of a woman who thinks her husband's cheating, and then you just go, oh, well, it turns out she was right. And like,
right.
Generally speaking, movies tend to have surprises and twists. It's an unfortunate thing. It's like when you spend the whole time doing this, you kind of know that it's not going to turn out what we're thinking it is the whole time. You know, that does diminish that sort of moment, I think. Makes it lose some of its power and its surprise, but I think everything that I'm enjoying about the movie has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, that's probably true. Like, you know, like the moments are good and they save the movie for me, but
yeah, and that's the thing that, you know, like I said, I'm sitting at like 4 out of 5 stars. You know, a big part of why it's never going to be a 5 out of 5 for me, probably, no matter how much I think about it, is just like how much like that moment doesn't quite land like I think it should or is supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you know, maybe as people who watch a ton of movies and who went to film school and studied screenwriting and that sort of thing, we're really in tune to that sort of thing, because I'll say that my wife who watched the movie with me, we paused it to, I think one of us had to go to the bathroom or something, or we got a snack or something midway through the movie. And I think this was after the point where they had followed him to the club and he had called and said like, oh, I'm not going to be home till after midnight. And he leaves the club
got in the taxi.
Got in the taxi by himself with the assistant girl.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, so what do you think? Like, do you think he's doing it? Are you convinced? And she was like, oh yeah, he did it. There's way too many signs. And he's being super shady or whatever. And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not convinced, and I need to see definitive proof or whatever. And
well, it just seems so like because of all the signs it's pointing at, and like also because like at the beginning he's like, remember, there's another part of your gift you haven't gotten yet, and then she gets disappointed that her gift sucks.
That was the big thing for me. I was like, he did say there's another part of her gift, so that whole diamond store. Oh, he left Cartier, and didn't. Yeah. You know, that was to me really clearly setting that up.
Yeah, like I know you're supposed to be like, oh, he got a mistress a nice gift or whatever, but like to me it just felt like, yeah, that's what they want us to think because they're going to come back at the end and he's going to give it to her.
Yep. Yeah, so there is some dissatisfaction there, but I'm just wondering how much of that comes from like being really well versed in movie, plots.
Well, and also, yes and no, but the movie's not about her marriage, right? And I think we spend too much time on that, to be honest with you. What the movie's really about is it's about her re-examining her relationship with men, her trust issues, her baggage through her father and what her father has done to her, and through her current relationship with her father and this current iteration of this man. Like, that's where the heart and soul of the movie is. So I think we need to spend less time on her marriage. Like, it's there as a backdrop, sure. But, maybe the movie is pretty much like that, but...
Pretty much, but we do spend lots of times in the beginning and the end setting all of that plot up that, are lesser than the rest of the movie. So you're right.
Yeah, I agree. And beyond that, I just think that maybe like the, getting out of the ticket scene or getting pulled over and then Bill Murray charming his way out of everything, I don't know, felt a little too on the nose.
Yeah, that's hard for me. I mean, that's one of the things I was talking about, before, was that I think, to me, that was just on the side of the line of like working for me, just because it was fun to watch him be super charming and him be Bill Murray. I could see how it's too much. Totally. It worked. It worked for me. And I think that was where I was kind of impressed that it didn't quite go too far for me. Like, it felt consistent with lots of other stuff, I guess, like in the end, with like him knowing that the waitress was a ballerina, based on like really subtle things. And then when they're in Mexico and she comes over to like the bar and he's just singing a song for everybody in the bar, and like all these people he doesn't know. Yeah.
Just sort of being a big ham.
Yeah. So it all kind of meshed together well enough for me. And awesome. I enjoyed the police. I thought it was pretty funny, like just overall the fact that he was getting pulled over, and in the end he like charmed the cops, and they end up like not only letting him go, but helping give him a push, like pushing his car away so that he can get it started again.
Yeah.
I think if not a scene that, given this time that we're in with like police stuff, feels a little privilegey.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? It's one of those scenes that like probably wouldn't be written now, because it just feels too touching on some sensitive subjects.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I didn't even think about it at the time, but yeah, that's probably like the most positive depiction of police in a film that you're going to see in 2020.
Yeah, and just, him being able to get away, like get out of the car and like talk to them and,
shoot the shit.
Give them stuff when they're like, when they first come up to him, they're like, shut off the car and get out, or, shut off the car. And he's like, I don't want to shut off the car. Like, he's able to, back talk them a little bit and try to tell them like, no, I'm not going to do, please don't make me do whatever don't want to obey your orders.
That's the Bill Murray-ness of it all.
Yeah.
The confidence.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I don't have any other thoughts on the Rocks, but other than just to say that I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I definitely recommend it. It's, there hasn't been a ton of movies, but it's high up there on my list of things I've seen in 2020, at least in terms of 2020 releases. That's true. I guess as far as 2020 releases go, this is pretty good. Yeah, and it's available on Apple Plus. I don't know where else it's available or when it will be available other places, but if you're one of the people without Apple Plus. And if you got a new Apple product, you can get a free year of Apple Plus if you sign up for it, which is what I did and how I watched it. There you go. That's smart. Yep. Cool. So do we have anything else to talk about? No, I think that is it for this episode. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening, listener. And Mike, thanks for talking movies and stuff with me today. Of course. And of course, then thank you, Jake Wagner Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bobscotch. All right. Stay tuned to this channel. Our next episode will be the Casually Criterion poll winner, probably Diabolique, unless a wave of votes come in to spice things up at the end. So, yeah, we'll see. Again, follow us on Twitter at casualcinemedia to vote in that poll. Well, by the time you're hearing this, you won't be able to vote in it, but follow along for our next poll and you can see the results and know what film we're reviewing next week. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at casualcinemedia. Guess everyone, have a wonderful day and stay safe. And the election is happening as we record this. So yeah, it's November 3rd as we're recording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope the world is okay whenever you're listening to this.
Hopefully
Knock
there's a
on
world
wood.
to release this into in a couple of days when it's done
Yeah.
being edited.
Knocked on wood. Okay. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.